In this video, we're going to take a look to see how to do one of the drawings in the activity 1.4.2 sketching techniques. There are questions on this sheet that you'll be able to answer from the PowerPoint presentation that we did in class. So we're going to skip to number 4, and the graph is actually on the next page. And there are some lines underneath this graph paper that we will want to take a look at first. When we're drawing, it is important that we represent objects accurately, and in order to do that, we have to use different types of lines. So it's sort of a code to tell people how something should be made or what they're looking at. So the 4 basic types of lines. Now there's many more, but we're going to focus on just 4. There is a bold, solid, black line that is called an object line, and that represents the edges and the different shapes that we can visibly see in an object from the point of view that we're viewing it from. The next line is a construction line, and that line is lighter than the object line because it's not actually part of the object. It's there to help us draw the object, and then it could be erased later or traced over. The hidden line is an evenly dashed line that can show objects that might be behind or inside of an object. So if we would have a rectangle and a circle behind it, we could show that circle behind the rectangle by using a dashed line to draw that circle. Then the last of the 4 is the center line, which is used to indicate the center of a round hole that's been drilled into some material. On our graph above, we're going to draw 4 different objects using those 4 different line types. So the first one that I'm going to demonstrate, and you should copy what I'm doing, is how to draw a relatively good circle on a piece of paper. Normally when people draw, they usually can draw a circle more oval shape, or it might not come out exactly round. So what we can do is we can first decide on how wide that circle is going to be. What's the diameter of the circle? So on our sheet we have boxes on our grid that can represent a distance. So let's say our distance for each one of these boxes is 1 inch. So let's say we have a hole that we want to have 4 inches in diameter. So I'm going to pick a point not right on the edge of our sheet, but a little distance in to give us some room to work. And what I want to do to make this circle is I want to first use some construction lines. And I want to measure out from a point, so this will be the center of the circle. I'm going to measure out 2 squares up, 2 squares down, 2 squares to the right, 2 squares to the left, and I'm making a little mark, very light. It may look a little darker to you on this video because of the camera, but they're actually very light on the sheet of paper so that I can erase them later. Next, what I'll want to do is I will make a box from those little marks. Again, I'm using light lines on my paper. Then I'll want to make a crosshair, make a cross. So now I have 4 boxes. I'll want to divide those boxes in half diagonally, and what I end up with is a diamond. Again, using all light lines on my sheet. Once I've done that, I have 4 outer triangles, and on those 4 outer triangles I'm going to mark where the center of that triangle is. with a little dot. Starting on the top at the 12 o'clock position, I'm going to draw an arced line that connects the 4 corners of my diamond and my 4 center points of those triangles. And I'm doing this very lightly so that if I make a mistake, I can fix it easily. And now once I get my circle made and it looks good, I'm then going to go in and darken that line. So very carefully trace over that construction line. And that is a tool that will help you make your circles pretty round. Now we're doing it by hand, so it's not perfect, and if we haven't practiced doing this, we're not going to do it perfectly, but this is really going to help make that circle nice and round. Then I go in, I can erase all those construction lines if I were to keep this. So for this activity, I want you to keep those construction lines there. So I could actually erase those and then they wouldn't be visible. And if I would erase part of this object line, it's dark enough I could go back and actually fix it. So I'm going to draw those construction lines back in. I'll leave those in there. And I can put a center line in here, and the way a center line works is, actually I'll get rid of some of this because the center line will need some space to work. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff in the middle. Is a center line to mark this. Let's say this is a hole that goes inside of some material. I'll mark a mark here, a mark here, mark here, and a mark here. So at 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock, if we imagine this being an analog clock. Then right where the center of the hole goes, you would mark a small cross. And that tells somebody that that is a hole, not just a circle that's painted on or drawn on, but that's actually a hole that will get drilled through a piece of material like a piece of wood or metal. So I have construction lines, I have object lines, and in this case I have a center line. And so the center line doesn't look like it does on the paper, but if you look, it's actually a long line, a short line, and a long line this way, a long line, a short line, and a long line this way. So it actually is a center line. It's just, it looks like a crosshair because of those lines crossing over each other. So what you'll do is you'll create objects using those 4 different lines. So I should see 4 different lines somewhere on these drawings. So right here we've already done 3. So if I want to do a hidden line, let's say I'd want to do a rectangle that we could see. So I'm going to draw a rectangle box. And I'm doing this in another corner. And let's say I want a circle to be behind it. We wouldn't be able to normally see it in real life, but if we want to show it's there, I would actually go in and I could draw that circle in there. So for the sake of time here, I'm going to just draw it by hand. And I'm just going to use the short dashes to represent that there's a circle behind the square. So that would be another way of using these lines. So what I'd like for you to do is I want you to try doing this with the circle and then coming up with 3 other drawings that would use the object line, construction line, hidden, and center lines. So I should see those lines being used in your other drawings.